Dying to get into Joe Abercrombie's works, but it's so daunting, you just don't know where to start? Well, let me tell you where I would start reading Joe Abercrombie's novels. Joe Abercrombie has quite the extensive backlog in grimdark fantasy, and there's a couple different ways you can approach his books, and you can do it however is less daunting for you. I mostly recommend general publication order to most people if they're looking to go for the long haul. But if you're just wanting to dip your toes in and see if you even like Joe Abercrombie before committing to a huge stack of books, there's a couple other places you can start too. Let's talk a little bit about it. Let's talk about where you can start if you're not wanting to dive into a huge series right away. If you are a fan of reading completed trilogies, you could start with his YA fantasy novel, The Shattered Sea series, and they're here on the screen. I have this on my Kindle. I've read them. They're fantastic. I love them. I don't care that they're YA. They're still a whole lot of fun, very interesting, great character work, and I find them a very solid place to get used to Joe Abercrombie's writing, as well as a secluded trilogy that you read that trilogy, you're done. So that's one place that you can start if you're not looking to get into a huge saga. If you're okay starting in a place that's not necessarily completed, you can pick up his newest release, which is The Devils. This is the first in a series of interconnected books that is coming out. He is slated to write 3 in this same world, but this is pretty much a contained story on its own. It's kind of going to be a series or a trilogy where it's this same group of people tackling different mysteries, kind of like. So you can read this and probably be okay to wait for the next book. This is a brand new release as of today though, so you'll probably have a little bit to wait to read a next one, but this is a great example of the humor that he has, the range in his character work, as well as a fantastic and compelling story. So I loved this book and I highly recommend it as a starting place if those criteria that I mentioned before appeal to you. A little bit of a disclaimer before I get into the first law world. You can read these in any order you want. This is just the best way that I have found and is suggested by the publisher in order to get all the Easter eggs, recognize all the characters, know all of the information. You can pick up an interconnected standalone if you want and read it first. That's fine. You will not catch everything because you won't know everything. So I highly recommend this order, although you can do as you please. Now, if you're like me and diving headfirst into something that is huge and epic, you can start where I started, and that would be the First Law trilogy. The Blade itself, Before We Are Hanged, and The Last Argument of Kings. This is the First Law trilogy, known as the Bloody Nine trilogy. It is fantastic. This is epic fantasy, grimdark fantasy. It's a very bleak and desolate world. Joe Abercrombie writes very character-heavy novels. The plot is still there for me. I thought it had a fantastic plot, but the battles, the characters, when you start these books, the characters you start with are not the characters you end up with. They have a lot of growth, a lot of change, and most of the story is dependent on the character work. Joe Abercrombie is fantastic when it comes to that, but I still felt that these books had a solid plot. Some people feel like The Blade itself is a little bit of a slog to get through. I do not agree with that. I thought it was fantastic. I was hooked from the first book, but that's all personal opinion. I can say that I got more and more interested as the books continued on. This is a fantastic place, and really, if you're going to go through the First Law series itself, I would really recommend starting here because this is going to give you the groundwork for all the novels that are to come after this. After the First Law trilogy, my opinion is to go into the interconnected standalones. That would be Best Served Cold, The Heroes, and Red Country. These are so much fun. Now, in the First Law trilogy, one of the main criticisms of Joe Abercrombie is that he doesn't write women well. The First Law trilogy is very heavy on male characters, and the female characters he writes are very superficial. However, with Best Served Cold, we get one of the best female protagonists I have ever read. Hands down, absolute hands down. I love our main person, Monza. She's fantastic. She's badass. She is kicking ass and taking no names. And this is the interconnectedness standalone I would suggest starting with because it gives you the most impact after the First Law trilogy. After that, it is generally recommended to start with The Heroes. This is a epic battle sequence. It is a 3-day long battle for people that are trying to take over a hill called the Hero Hill. And it is an epic battle. Absolutely epic. A lot of people say that this is their least favorite because it really is just a giant battle, but I loved it. I loved it so much. I thought it was great. And then after that, I recommend picking up Red Country. We do meet some new characters in this, and we find some old characters that we know and love. And this is probably one of my favorite books out of the entire series. Sharper Ends is a series of short stories that are set in the First Law world, and they kind of give you more information on some of the characters throughout the books. And I typically recommend this to be read after the interconnected standalones. I feel like that is where it gives you the most impact and information, but you can read it anytime you want. There's not necessarily spoilers for the books in these short stories, but I just feel like you'll understand the most if you read them after the interconnected standalones. But it's up to you. If you need a break at some point but don't want to leave the world but want something short and sweet, try Sharp Ends. It's a lot of fun. We're not done yet with the First Law world. After that comes another trilogy. These are the Age of Madness trilogy. We have A Little Hatred, we have The Trouble with Peace, and The Wisdom of Crowds. This is really, really fun. I loved these a lot. I constantly battle in my brain if the First Law trilogy or the Age of Madness trilogy is better. I can't decide which one I like more. This is probably the best way to describe this is a trilogy that takes place well after the First Law trilogy, and it's kind of like the next generation of vagabonds and miscreants. So it's a lot of fun. It's really interesting. It's, again, grimdark. It's bleak. It's depressing, but it's great. The character work is fantastic. We absolutely get to meet some characters we've met before and some new ones, and it's just all done super, super well. I really, really enjoyed these. And for your overall knowledge, all of these, every single one of these is excellent on audiobook. I did tandem read on every single one of these books, and I enjoyed it quite a bit.